Welcome everybody to the Scale Up Show. This is your host Ryan Staley, and I have a very special guest with me today. I have Thierry Soudee. He actually came to the US for his first job after school at 23, spent 10 years in the CPG industry, and consulting in both US and Europe before founding UpClear in 2008. Something that's really cool about what he's done is he hasn't raised any external capital, so he's bootstrapping, which hashtag respect for that. He's been listed on the Inc. 5000 for 8 consecutive years from 2014 to 2021. On top of it, too, he's got a really cool solution that's revenue management SaaS, which I would love to get into so everybody knows what that is. And on top of it, he is an avid runner with an amazing story around, and now he participates in marathons for New York and Paris every year. What's up, Terry? How's it going, man?
Hey Ryan, thank you, and happy to be here. I've listened to a few of your podcasts, and it's always great to listen to peers and share common challenges for sure.
Yeah, well, thanks for being on, and you have some amazing stories to share as well. So super excited to get into that. And so what we'll do is we'll go through the Founder 5 real quick. So what revenue stage are you at right now?
Yeah, our recurring is about 11 million at this point.
Okay, perfect. So you're at 11 million ARR. What's your go-to-market strategy? Is it product? Is it marketing? Is it sales-led?
Mostly product. Until very recently, we've had no sales team, literally very little marketing. So it's really been product, working with clients and taking one step at a time and growing one client at a time with a good product that fits the needs of our clients.
Well,
and at the same time, keeping it as standard as possible so it can scale for sure.
Excellent. Yeah, I mean, I'm sure a lot of people will be excited about that product-led strategy. So how big is your team?
55 at this stage.
Okay,
Yeah.
and you mentioned not a lot. How many are in sales?
Yeah. I've always been doing a bit of the sales historically, and then I hired a CS team. So the region leaders were doing the pre-sales, demos, etc. And it's only recently, last year, that we've added one guy who's solely, exclusively focused on building the pipeline and doing demos. But he's the only one. Outside of that, everybody else has another job, and we've really relied on word of mouth and referrals to grow the business.
That's awesome. I love that. And so talk really high level in 2 sentences or less. What does your solution do exactly?
Right. So we are UpClear. Our software has a name called Blue Planner. And it's a vertical SaaS. So we work in the CPG space. Companies that have revenue anywhere between 50 million in revenue and 2-3 billion. And we help them with originally sales planning and managing pricing and promotion changes. But now we've evolved with more data in the system. We've evolved much more as a analytical, intelligence-driven software as well. So we kind of have 2 sets of users. We have the operational hands-on users that create sales plan and promotional activities for their retailers. And the other half of our users is the revenue management teams that really look at the numbers and form their decisions for future planning based on the data that we extract.
Love that. See a huge need for that, especially on the supply chain side and sales side. And then, so what would you say is your ninja skill, your one skill that you think, I'm sure you have many skills, obviously, to get to where you're at, but what would you say is your ninja skill, something that you do absolutely amazing that you're really proud of?
Well, there's always the product market fit and making sure that you keep your software easy to use. I mean, it seems easy to say, but in a vertical SaaS, it's pretty advanced functionality. And then also we serve clients globally, so the requirements are very different one from the other. And so it's difficult to keep the page that you're working on pretty simple to use for everyone. And we've managed that, but also to scale, what we've done is we've also maintained one single software. We've said no to customization. It's easy to say, okay, client, I'm going to develop that for you and it'll work perfectly for you. We've kind of said no to that. And in the end, we've been able to grow consistently thanks to that, I think.
Excellent. Well, that's amazing discipline. So thanks for the quick breakdown on that. So Terry, just walk us through like where you're at today. I mean, you're doing some amazing things. You're running marathons. You got an $11 million ARR company, and you got like one salesperson doing it. So I mean, just give us the full breadth of what's kind of going on today, and then not to mention the run that you've had for the Inc. 5000 fastest growing companies. So walk us through that. Walk us through your exact situation today, what it's like. Kind of what you're going through and where you're at, so everyone has a deeper starting point of you and your organization.
Yeah, it's interesting. So a couple of weeks ago, I had dinner with another founder of a company that recently sold for 1 billion plus.
Wow.
And he was telling me, look,
Can you
yeah,
tell? Wait, can you tell us
it's
who it is? Can you?
iSIMS, yeah, iSIMS, they do HR systems, applicant tracking systems. They were one of the pioneers in that field. And he was telling me, look, it took me 10 years to go from zero to 15, 20 million in ARR, but then it took me the next 5 to go from 20 to 100.
Wow.
And then the next 3 to get from 100 to 50 or so. So there's an acceleration. And so, and it takes a few milestones. I think historically, when I look back, it's been 12 years now, 13 years. There's been a few milestones that we've hit that took us where we are now. And today, this year, we passed the 10 million mark in actual annualized revenue. And we're thinking a bit differently about the future. So I think we're going to invest a bit more in growth. We now, have a system that is proven, a team that is bigger, and all of a sudden you get more inbound leads and interest from bigger clients. So our next step is really to go up market and be a bit more focused on business development in different areas, whether it's geography or product. But historically, I can see 3 or 4 phases that took us here for sure, from developing the product to working with a handful of clients for the first 5 years and have patience there to get to the right place. It took after 5 years, I think I only had 5 clients
Wow.
in the end, and probably a revenue less than $500,000. I can't remember,
Wow.
but that was the first phase. But we were also sitting down with our clients every day, trying to really get it right. The next 5 years were more about expanding our teams and transferring the knowledge to the client teams, and then more recently we've invested more again in the product, building scalability in the product so that we can get ready for the next phase. So there's really those 3 phases: getting the first product right, so you can have other people implement it, demo it, and implement it, and then you go back to the product and you build scalability. And we've done that for the past 2 years, and we still have some work to do to make it even more scalable in terms of data, etc. But yeah, it takes a few stages, but you need to keep believing in what you're doing and not compromise. Stick to your plan and again, saying no to clients. And we've always had this rule that it's the 80-20. We have an amazing system, but it covers 80% of what you need. With us, you're not going to get 100, but you're going to get 80% that works tomorrow. And it's SaaS, it's super easy to use. Your users are going to love it, but you have to admit that or accept that you're not going to get the extra 20.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Which takes other vendors, years to do, right? So.
Well, it's yeah. I mean, and you're looking at your milestones, right? So 5 customers, $500,000 in revenue, and you just nailed that, got it right, and then you kind of focused, on scaling to the next size, getting more and more customers, and then now you're looking at product scalability. And so, I think that's awesome, and it's hard for people to have that level of patience. So, and most people wouldn't, So how did you, for 5 years to get to 500K roughly, right? Ballpark. I know you said ballpark. How did you have the patience to take 5 years to get to 500K annually in revenue?
Yeah, I started this business from a position of consultant. So I was working with one single client and developing solutions or changes in business process. But the solution that we sell now was, initiated with one client in the UK, and I was passionate about the product. I didn't necessarily have a vision to scale to 500 customers at the time. I just wanted to get the product right. Get another client. Maybe when I established the business, my big focus for the first year was to get a second client effectively. And I was patient to wait a year until a small company came in and said, well, maybe we can try your solution. And then I spent a year with that first client, real client, sitting down with them again on site to get it right for them with that long-term belief that it would scale at some point. I mean, I was coming from consulting, so as soon as we started charging subscriptions, I was earning a bit more, and there was a rule at the beginning for every new client, one new employee. So I think after 3 or 4 years, we had again 5 clients, 5 employees, and that's when you start thinking, well, we can scale this up a little bit more. And very quickly, you go from 5 to 25 clients, and then from 25 to 100. Yeah.
Love that. So was there any point on your way to growing from zero to, that 11 million ARR that you thought, hey, I might fail. This might not work?
Possibly in the early years, it was a bit overwhelming in the enterprise space, and I'm sure that's the case for all SaaS vendors. You come in, and whether you have a horizontal solution or a vertical, it's crowded, right? There's always vendors, and there's always big vendors, the SAPs or possibly Microsoft. There's always big vendors that you come up against at a trade show, and you're like, how the hell am I going to compete with these guys? And that's why you have to be realistic and humble, and just think, that's okay. I'm going to work with my 3 to 6 clients and make them happy, and one day. And then, so it's the successes that come year after year that keep you going. I did have doubts, I guess, the first year. Yeah, I formed the company in the UK, and then I very quickly moved back to the US. And for a year, I contacted all of my contacts, tried to get some intros and demos. And some guys told me, yeah, we're going to try it. And then a month later, it falls apart. And it's like, oh. But after a year, out of the blue, I got a request from like I mentioned, a small company, and that gives you a boost for another 12 months, right? So it's these moments of doubts, but that are followed by excitement that keep you going. And I mean, once you've got, again, it's SaaS, very early, I established that model of subscription. In fact, I got some pushback from clients in the early days because I was early on charging a yearly subscription or monthly or yearly subscription as opposed to the traditional, license and then maintenance. But as I wanted to gain clients, so I said, okay, well, you know what? I have all the time in the world. I'll deploy the solution for free for you. However, our model is going to be you pay us every year. So I don't know, 60, 80,000 a year. So that gave me the cash flow. And so after a couple of years, of not paying myself and having very limited resources, in year 3, we started seeing some recurring revenue coming in, and then adding one employee at a time, and there was not at that point. I knew that all we had to do is do a good job, and it would grow automatically, naturally. Yeah.
Well, hey, I appreciate you being so candid about your journey, because there's founders that are struggling at all different stages, right? I've talked to them, and everybody has different inflection points, and so it's awesome that you broke through and made that a reality, and kind of where you're at right now. So the question I have for you is, like, Terry, like, you got 11 million ARR, and you did that predominantly through a product-led growth model. So why move up market now? Why is now the right time?
Well, it's the right time because we're changing league a little bit, right? When you pass 10 million, you get more visibility with investors, with partners, with clients as well. So up until now, half of our client base would not even consider us because we were too small. But I think now this is changing. So we actually have two families of clients. We have independents, mostly in North America. So we're talking about brands that, well, Vita Coco is one of them, Beyond Meat, brands that are anywhere between 100 and $2 billion in revenue, but they've grown themselves, family-owned businesses or privately held companies, some of them that are owned by PE firms, but um, they're growing and they want to work with the agile vendors. Often these companies are open to take risks and work with small vendors like us. On the other side of our business, the other 50%, it's subsidiaries of multinationals. And there's a lot of red tape getting through, takes months. Recently, we won a big account in Asia, but the sales cycle was 2 years. And then all of that complexity. But as you get bigger, when you get closer to 10 million, etc., you're able to have your SOC reports. You're able to have a legal support that you wouldn't have before, and also just a credibility that you didn't necessarily have. So the question of how many employees do you have, or are you guys certified for this, or what are your security protocols, etc. We tick the box, and so it's much easier. And so it's the right time, I think, now to just we feel more confident that we can win those big RFPs and move up market, and that's how we can grow, right? Because if you want to maintain a 20-30% growth, when you get to that level, there's no other way. Like the small accounts there, mid market or small market isn't going to give enough. And I mean, it's also quite exciting for the team to go up market because it's more data, and it's also more product possibilities, around data intelligence, etc. So it works for everyone. But the other aspect is you're also more attractive to partners, right? So large data partners that you can work with, and those guys, they have introductions with larger accounts as well. So our next step is possibly to work with bigger companies in partnerships that maybe that'll take a form of some sort of a merger or funding, or I think we're open to that at this point. That helps us really gain scale on a global stage. And I'm very confident that we have the right foundations in place now after so many years to actually move up and compete with the very big guys that I
Well, you
mentioned.
have some big customers already. I mean, I saw you got some pretty big logos already. Can you drop a couple of them as an example?
Yeah, of course. So the Danone Group is a major CPG company worldwide. We started with them. The product was in inception or conception with them in the early days. So always an amazing story. We've grown with them from one market in England to 15 or 20 markets globally. And it's thanks to that relationship that we've been able to expand geographically throughout Europe and in Asia. So a great success story. And thanks to that, we've been able to add other global accounts like Ferrero Chocolate, Kraft Heinz,
Nice.
Perfetti. Yeah.
Yeah, those are some big logos. So awesome work on that. And I mean, yeah, it's tough because sometimes in the enterprise space you have, because that's where I lived for a long time and built a team from scratch. And one of the things that we were really focused on driving the speed of those deals down. So we actually got our average sales cycle length down to 9 months on average for deals that were $300,000 or more, which was pretty cool because then it drives that, kind of annual predictability with that. And that scaled all the way up to $20 million deals. So yeah, I think there's a huge bright future for you, especially in this space, considering you're getting inbound referrals, you've grown through product led, and you really nailed that product. So I think that's awesome.
And the good thing with us is, and I guess that applies to other industries, but in consumer goods, there's a lot of global consolidation, right? I think 90% of the business is owned by those top 20
Hmm.
multinationals, right? The Unilever, Nestle, etc. of the world. So um, if you deploy in a smaller subsidiary and you do a good job there, chances are they're going to talk. They have their own success stories internally, and so they can spread the word, and you get other markets, and you expect. That's how we've grown in many ways. You go from one subsidiary in one country to another, and before you know it, you have 10 subsidiaries, and yeah,
Yeah.
you
So let's talk.
you recurring revenue for the years to come. Yeah.
Well, yeah, and then like, have you heard of what ServiceNow has done at all with their kind of move up market strategy? Have you heard about that at all or no?
I'm not sure.
So yeah, to get more specific, so basically they were supposed to only focus on Fortune 500, Fortune 1000, because that was their deal. It was only an enterprise grade solution, and they have 2,000 customers, and they keep expanding their TAM consistently because they keep providing more and more. So I think they're over $1 billion in ARR. So it's like there's just mountains of opportunity. Another example is Palantir. Have you heard of Palantir at all? Peter Thiel's company.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
they do their $40 billion valuation, and they get, check this out, they get 66% of their revenue from their top 20 customers. Top 20 customers, right? And that's like 3 or 4 billion in revenue. So, and then what they did too, which is something cool, their expansion model is they get each customer to spend 36% more with them every year. So not only do they have that, big customer, but they got an awesome expansion model, which is something that I help clients implement so that they can continue to expand the wall with those big customers because, you've invested so much time getting in there. And once you get in there, then that's how you grow and grow and grow. So it's a beautiful model. So I could share with you the details on it. But shifting gears a little bit, Terry, I know, you something really cool that you did is marathons, and I know we talked a little bit earlier about how it was transformative with some of the things that you're doing. So can you just walk us through that? And I know that post that you wrote about it blew up on LinkedIn. So can you just share that story? Because I think it'd be very amazing and inspirational to kind of go through.
Yeah. I've always been a runner as a kid or in school, but the sad thing is because of the early days of the business, I was hands-on working 14-hour days. I kind of stopped. I mean, so I ran marathons in my 20s. I was pretty good at it, but I was also busy doing other things. But in my 30s, I set up that business, and I kind of stopped running. But then I turned 40 and I realized, what have I done? I didn't waste 10 years of my life, but I loved running. Why did I not continue? There's no excuse, right? And so I went back to it, and I had kids, young kids. So the best way to do this was to set time in the morning. And I found the discipline to do it, more and more mornings in the week. And I came back to a level which has been amazing by applying that, you know, diligence of doing it very focused and also with a team. So I'm really proud that I went back to it and that I could achieve these good results. But there's so many, so recent that post that you're mentioning, yeah, there's so many parallels that I found between running the business and running marathons. So many, and I can talk about this a lot. But what's interesting is that as I stopped running because I thought I didn't have the time in my 30s when I was starting the business. And in fact, I did find the time, and even if the time that I found running took a little bit, maybe an hour and a half of my business day, it was for the best because it was time that I could step back. It was time for me. It was time that I would let the teams run their own things. It was just time that I'd missed, and it detached me a little bit from the business. And physically, I think it helped me to sleep better. I mean, I would go to bed early. because I would wake up every day at 5:30. So I would go to bed early. And the good thing is I would go to bed and not think about work because I was so tired that I would just sleep like a baby at 9:30. So a lot of the stress got physically, if you like, evacuated. And I guess it came at a time when the business was growing, so it was possibly easier. But I would encourage anybody to pick up one extra activity. It doesn't need to be sport, but every day that you do every day and that you take for yourself. And also the other thing with running is that in the early days I was running with earbuds and listening to music, and now I don't. So I'm either with friends or just on my own and no input, right? Because
Wow.
we get bombarded with inputs, and alerts and notifications all over. And so when I run, it's actually the only time awake in the day that I'm free of all these bombing, and it's good. It's just good. It refreshes your mind, and keeping the body healthy is also super important. I found, and the good thing too is that you feel better, and the team sees that. So that there's also that beneficial aspect for the entire team, I think.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I think it's amazing that you have no inputs. So have you, because of that, received some of the most like creative ideas while you're running that you've ever had, or what kind of mental benefits have you seen from that?
Yeah, so I'm not necessarily, and in fact, I'm not at all thinking about the business when I run, but I'm sure that when I'm back home, I take the shower, all of a sudden, I'm I'm ready to start the day with a fresh mind and definitely some thoughts or decisions that have cleared up. There's no doubt,
Yeah.
no doubt. I come home at 7 and then it's nonstop with the kids and running to the office and but in the shower when I come home and I'm willing to start the day, I think it's clear in front of me. I know what the day is about. I've been able to prioritize and yeah,
And do you,
definitely.
how much do you run a day? How much time and how much distance?
Yeah, about an hour a day. I mean, on average, 7 to 8 hours a week. I'm a member of a team, so that helps the accountability a lot. And we have a whole schedule of easy runs and workouts. So there's a whole schedule to the week also, by the way, around that, around the exercise, which is very good. But yeah, it's like any day, every day, 6 to 7 a.m. pretty
That's
much.
awesome. Congrats on that, man. Do you do any biohacking so your body doesn't break down, or any other restorative kind of uh, eating or biohacking, anything like that?
I'm starting to pay a bit more attention at the diet. I've cut down a bit the red meat for sure. To, I still eat a bit of meat, but it's more of a celebration thing. Yeah, I'm trying to be careful. I don't want to gain weight, but there's always more I could do. But yeah, naturally you eat better when you're exercising a lot for sure.
Yeah. I look at a piece of steak now and again, like 5 pounds. So, and for
Yeah,
those of you that are
exactly.
listening, like Terry's a trimmed, streamlined young man over here. So he's got nothing to worry about in terms of gaining weight, man. He's pretty streamlined. All right. Well, before we wrap things up, I got one more question. So you mentioned at the beginning about your ninja skill being making the product super easy to use, which is huge for any kind of product led growth strategy to start. So break down the model in terms of like your view of that and how you approach it in like 3, 4, 5 steps, just in terms of like, okay, when I look at this first, then this, then this, then that, to make the usability easy.
Yeah, well, I mean, there's a few aspects I think to that question, but there's the design, which is super important, right? Often when you develop software, you look at requirements and you try to fit them all on the page, but uh, there's got to be rules in how you design the page in a transactional system to make it extremely intuitive for the user. So it can't be too busy. The screen needs to be pretty lean with very clear buttons, etc. So, I mean, software companies know that, but I think it's rule number one: keep it extremely obvious and easy to use for the end user. And then make sure that you commonize, or everything you do needs to serve another benefit, right? So there's no, every time there's a new request coming to the software, make sure you step back and make sure that you're doing this, but it's going to open the door to do more with other clients, etc. So always think scalability, and when the problems come, a bug or an issue comes in, always look at the root cause and never, so keep digging, keep digging to the root cause of the issue, and really take the time, don't rush it, take the time to correct the fundamental problem that was introduced. And often in software, problems and solutions create more code and more, tech debt that you have to maintain. So very important to eliminate everything unnecessary and have a clean software that people can just come in and support as well.
I love that. So simplicity, keep your eye on the problems, and then root cause. How much time during the week do you spend on product, just looking at product and your software?
Yeah, so I mentioned at the beginning that we're going back to the product where we've upgraded our platform recently in the past 2 years. So with that project, our tech team has tripled in the past 2 years. That's exciting, because you think in SaaS you develop and you're done. That's not the case. You need to adopt the latest tech. You need to continue to innovate and work on performance and features. So recently I've spent much more time, which I enjoy, with the team on the product. So I'd say 40,
Wow.
50, close to 50%. Yeah.
Excellent.
So I compare and I meet other founders or CEOs, at least, possibly more CEOs than founders. But some of us have completely different jobs. I mean, I meet CEOs that spend 90% of their time outside of the office, conferences, investors, etc. And my time is spent with the team, 95% in the office. I go to very few events really now. So yeah, working with the team and a lot on the product and thinking about ways to scale our company.
Excellent. Well, Thierry, it was awesome having you on the show today. I really appreciate you being candid about your story, how you got there, transformations that you have. Where can people find out or more about you, connect with you, or learn more about UpClear?
Well, thanks, Ryan, for having me. A pleasure. And it's always great to hear other founders, and I can relate to marathon runners, but I can relate to founders obviously the same way. There's that thing in common that we understand each other. Yeah, LinkedIn is the best place, of course. I think find me on LinkedIn, and happy to chat.
Excellent, man. Well, thank you so much for being on the show. Thank you for your time, and love the direction that you're heading. I see huge things happening for you over the next few years. So thanks for being on.
Thanks, Ryan. Good job with the podcast.
Thanks.